Well, good morning, everybody on the West Coast and on the East Coast. If you're watching, good afternoon. I'm MJ Bolt, and I am your host of UnBolted. And we've got Julie Barrett, live from Florida, here with us today, founder of Conservative Ladies of Washington, also Conservative Ladies of America, right,
And
Julie?
yep, they're two
Welcome.
separate entities. Yep.
Okay, that's what I wasn't sure of. Welcome. Thanks for coming back on here.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's always fun to chat with you. And there's Kitty. Hi, Kitty.
Oh, do I get it? Oh, yeah. Oh, here we go.
My cats do that too. They'll just hop
Yep.
right up on the desk.
Yep. They're curious. They want to be a part of it, right?
Yep.
So, Julie, you have just been a powerhouse, these
Oh,
last
thanks.
few years, and you've helped elevate. You've been in such a steward and an advocate for parental rights, because of your own story and your own experience. And so I just really appreciate that you continue to be, even though, yes, you're not in Washington anymore, but you continue to keep an eye on and invest time and resources into understanding what is happening with these policies and in our state and helping to inform parents about what is happening and what is going on, really below the surface. I mean, it doesn't feel like anybody else is really, on the sound horn about this stuff. So first of all, just want to thank you, and
I appreciate
excited to
that.
have you on here again. And why don't you start out and just give people that don't know you or your story, just give them a little background about how you got to where you are.
Yeah, so the quick overview is I started Conservative Ladies of Washington as a Facebook group at the end of 2019 as a place where people that shared, more conservative values could go, and because I was getting kicked out of all the community Facebook groups. So I thought, well, I'll start my own group and then I can't get kicked out. And it was a way for other ladies to connect, because in Western Washington, it's really hard to meet like-minded people, because a lot of conservatives, at least back then, were really in the closet, and I think still are. And so then obviously COVID happened shortly thereafter, and then the George Floyd and Chaz Chop in 2020. And the group just really grew by thousands in that first year. And there was just definitely a hunger for women to be able to connect. And then in 2021, we had a situation where our daughter was in crisis and went to the emergency room at Seattle Children's Hospital. And she was discharged the following day to a youth homeless shelter without our consent. And I had no idea that that was legal for them to do, which sent me down a bunch of rabbit holes. And once I learned what the laws were, when we finally got her out of that shelter, we had to get her out of Washington State so she could get, the treatment and the resources that she needed, with us being able to be involved in that care. So I learned a lot about the laws. I got connected with former State Representative Brad Klippert, who was in the legislature at that time. When he found out about this Facebook group with thousands of ladies in it, session was still in April. It was April of 2021. And so he asked me to put out calls to action on different bills that they were debating in the legislature. And he'd tell me about the bill and kind of tell me what he needed it to, the call to action to say. And Brad and I became quick friends. And he was, I would say he was a teacher and a mentor to me as far as reading legislation. How do you find it? How do you decipher it? And it quickly became the mission of Conservative Ladies of Washington. And in that next session, 2022, I testified on probably close to 100 different bills. I think it was a way for me to distract myself from the crises that we were continuing to go through. And it was a way for me to fight back. The state had really crippled my ability to protect my child. And this was a way that I could go speak up, and they had to listen to me. It didn't change the outcomes, but it, was a way for me to use my voice in a productive way, and also to alert other parents. And I've just kind of been down in that rabbit hole. And once you're down in the rabbit hole, you find that there's like tunnels that lead you to other rabbit holes. And so I'm still there. And I think that somebody referred to Conservative Ladies as a political watchdog group. And I think that's a great description for us, because we really just want to bring transparency and truth to the people so they know what's going on in government. And, I've really wanted to use my voice to try to alert as many parents as possible as to what's going on in Washington, especially. But it is happening across the country, in blue states and even in red states. So
Yeah. And this was, I mean, this happened, your child was 14 at the time. Is that right?
yep,
Yeah. So a lot of people still want to say, oh, this doesn't happen in Washington. Oh, that
right,
doesn't happen here. 14, that doesn't happen. Yes, it does. And it
yep,
happened to you. Unfortunately,
yeah.
it's unfortunate that it would happen to any child.
And I'm not alone. I mean, I know you had your guest yesterday that had CPS getting involved in something in their family. And I have friends that CPS actually took their baby away. They've since left Washington and moved to Texas. This happened in 2021 as well. These things happen on a regular basis in Washington state. And you don't hear about it because most people aren't coming onto MJ's podcast willing to talk about it. I mean, it's scary. There's an element of shame that why wasn't I able to protect my child?
Yeah.
There's fear that the state CPS is going to retaliate against you. So this happens more than people are aware. And with these laws that have been implemented over these last few years, it's going to start happening even more.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think, thank you for acknowledging that. And that is what I'm trying to do is bring these stories and the truth to people, so that people are aware, because unfortunately our media will not tell these stories. They will
Right.
not speak the truth. They won't tell you about these bad bills that are going through, that are, harming our children, that are hurting our parental rights to help and protect our children. And so we have to do this. That's what I feel like my calling is right now, is to help, share these stories, give a platform for these stories, what you went through, what Emily went through, that was on yesterday. And it's an open invitation, Julie. If you know other people, please let them know and connect them with me, as I
I
as
will.
I I want to help get those stories out, as hard as they are. But you also bring up a great point about, people are embarrassed that this is
Mhm.
happening. And so it is hard to speak up. It's hard when it's happening to you. And having a son with disabilities, or different abilities, IEPs, you're just struggling to do the best you can.
Mhm.
And you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm under the microscope. Are people just going to think I'm a terrible parent? I've had professionals come to my house, and you're like, oh, just like Emily was saying, oh my gosh, are they going to judge me because my toilets aren't sparkling clean? All of that, it's a trauma. It's a, it shakes up the
Yeah.
family, and then you're trying to navigate it on top of it. And it really is inhumane, I think. And it's a struggle. Parents shouldn't have to go through this, except for
No.
extreme cases. And these are not extreme cases we're talking
Right.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, they've
So,
really taken this, where the state needs to protect these vulnerable or abused children from neglectful or abusive parents. They've really taken that and made it more of a mainstream, like we need to protect all the children, especially the children that have those bad conservative parents that won't let them, cut off their private parts. I mean, really.
or put poisons in their body.
Right. I mean, really, like I'm saying that sort of flippantly, but it's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a joke. And just funny story, as you were talking about people coming into your home when I was going through a court battle with my kids back in like 2013. They had to send a guardian ad litem to my home. And I had the author of a book called Shitty Mommy had sent me her book to review her book. And it was sitting on my coffee table when the guardian ad litem came. And I'm like, oh, I really just did not need, I did not need this.
I'm not
today.
trying to be a shitty mommy.
Right. And it's just it's just a joking. It's a funny book.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those
Yes.
things. We're all human. The point is we're all human, and your house doesn't look perfect, and none of us are perfect parents. And it's very stressful and fearful to have these people who are looking, they come in looking for problems.
Yeah.
And to have that coming into your home is very violating.
Yeah. And this is a huge, this is part of our whole discussion today is about medical freedom. Some of the things that have been happening are impacting or potentially going to impact our medical freedom. And it sounds like the case you talked about with a baby. I've heard
Mm-hmm.
of other cases here locally in Spokane, not just Western Washington, but in Spokane, Eastern Washington, right next to Idaho, it happening as well, where if you don't do the plan that they propose or they are
Right.
saying you have to do, which is whether it's a vaccination plan, or a treatment plan, then all of a sudden something gets triggered and you are reported to CPS. Is that kind of the situation that you've heard about as well?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that the doctor's offices, my kids are all over the age of 18 now. So it's been a while since I've been in a pediatrician's office, but I think, they have these, especially, when a kid is over 13, right? In Washington state, the child gets their own platform, portal on a website with the insurance company and with the doctor's office that the parents don't have access to. And then they go into the pediatrician's office with parent is asked not to come. And they have a list. And the reason the parent's is asked not to come is because they're going to ask your child, about a bunch of things that are happening in the home, about your child's sexual activity, about, your child's mental health and, gender identity questions. And, just for example, one of the things they ask about is, do you have firearms in your house? Are they locked up? I mean, I don't know how people's children would know how to answer that. But like, those are conversations that you want to have with your kid, right? Like, hey, if anybody ever asks you, what would your answer be? And then kind of work with oh yeah, we do have firearms and they're in a safe and, you're not able to access them. So it's really a time where parents have to be have more forethought into these conversations that their kids are going to be having, whether in the doctor's office or at school, without their parents present, that could trigger, some kind of state intervention.
Yes, that is such an important thing. And I think we probably need to dive into some more of those. What can they ask? Once and we're talking about when they're 13, right? What are the things that they can ask, or maybe there's parameters, which unfortunately I don't think there are,
Probably not.
right?
I
And
don't
so,
think so.
and can a child opt out of that? Can a child say, or a 13-year-old, a teenager say, no, I want my parent present? This happened to me. One of my good friends, just the last week, I believe, or 2 weeks, that her daughter, but she was 11. They went in for a, visit, and the doctor told the parent to leave, told my friend to leave.
Wow.
And she was not prepared for that. So and they had refused to do the vaccines that were, being pushed on them at the time, and said, no, we're going to wait, and no, we're not going to do this. And the doctor made some comments as to her, disagreement with that, and wait till, her daughter's of age and she can, make her own decisions. I mean, kind of like threatening.
Yeah.
And then said, well, I need to talk to your daughter and you need to leave the room. And my friend was saying she was Googling quickly, like, can they do that? And what are her rights? And she didn't want to make a big beef because she didn't want to cause more problems, right?
Right.
But even if your child isn't 13, you have to be aware of what your rights are. Because she could have refused and she would have been in her right to do so. She didn't know that. And it was
Well, I
also,
mean, that's such a great example of how it happens, because it's easy for us as keyboard warriors to be like, well, doctor's never going to do that to my kid. And then you get in there and you're caught off guard and you're like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. So really having that, planning ahead. Okay, if the doctor tells me to leave the room, what am I going to do? And you talk to your child about it too. I mean, these are all conversations that, sort of on the tail end for me and probably for you too. I know our kids are kind of in that same age group. These sorts of policies and things happening in the doctor's office started happening as, my kids were, in their teenage years. And so, we had this long history with our doctors, but I think now, things are changing so quickly and parents are really being pushed aside. But I wonder, that 11-year-old for girls, is they're giving that HPV vaccine, which is, for sexually transmitted, HPV. And we know, I haven't looked this up, so I'm just kind of like off the top of my head here and thinking out loud, but that HPV vaccine, I wonder if that would fall under like sexual health stuff that kids can get in Washington without parents' consent.
Yep. Or if the medical professional deems a child mature enough,
Right.
Whether
Yep.
they are of age or not,
Right.
then they can say, oh, they're mature enough to make this decision, even though they might not be 13 or
Right.
older.
Exactly. Yeah. So the doctor can, could say, well, I talked to the patient about it and she was 11 years old and she understood why she needed this vaccine and she asked to have it. So,
Yeah. And if you don't know, please look into the risks of HPV. It's awful.
yes.
It is, it's done some terrible, terrible things to children, including death. And there is no way I would allow, my children to, that were minors to do any of that. So just, do your research,
Yes.
So, and we're getting into some of this, that's a little bit beyond, I know what we want to talk about, but these are the implications.
Right.
These are the
Right.
implications of the policies that have been laid out in our state. And, previous to the Trump administration, were also laid out in our nation that were kind of laying the groundwork for this. This was the big movement. And so that's why we wanted to talk about this today. And I wanted to talk about this with you, Julie, because last week I saw your post on X. And if you're not following Julie, you need to follow Julie. Julie, tell them how to find you and follow you and your organization and the website, because it's great information. It's imperative, obviously, in times we live in.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm pretty active on X, which is at Julie C. Barrett. And then we have our website is conservativeladiesofwa.com and conservativeladiesofamerica.com. I also recommend people sign up for the Substack, because that way, when we push out a post, you'll get it right to your inbox. And that is conservativeladiesofamerica.substack.com. And we send out stuff almost daily. And there's so much going on right now that there's like, we've just been pushing out stuff right and left. It's crazy.
Yeah. So Julie's doing, her and her organization is doing the work for you to dive into these policies to, number one, be aware of them when they come out, just like this Department of Health, the State Department of Health news release that, really didn't get a lot of glam and glitter until you started posting about it. And be aware of things like that. And these, what are the standing orders? I won't use the word mandate. It is not a mandate, but these standing orders that are being issued that then can impact you. And so I highly recommend it. Even, you just have to be informed these days. You have to be informed. And what is happening in Washington, Oregon, and California, and now Hawaii, with this alliance and these standing orders that they're doing, really does have grave impact. I know Bison McDoom just commented, he said, well, 100% of the ingredients in a vaccine must be presented to a parent or patient, and the parent or patient should have to sign a document acknowledging the risk. But I can tell you that doesn't happen at all. And in fact, in COVID, the transparency document was blank. The risk, the side effects, the insert that's supposed to be along with those was completely blank. So, Yes, yes, that happened all during COVID. So there was still a lot of questions about what actually
Yeah.
was in it, and there was a lot of speculation. A lot of the speculation ended up being true,
Right.
fortunately. So
Exactly.
yeah. So Julie, let's talk about what has happened recently with this news release, these orders being issued. And I don't know if you want to lay some groundwork ahead of time a little bit, or what has happened preceding this to kind of get us to where we are. Tell us kind of the latest.
Sure. Should we maybe go kind of quickly through the timeline, and then if you want to go back and go deeper into some of the things, we can do that. On March 14th of 2024, the legislature passed Senate Bill 6095, which is the policy that gave the authority to Washington's Secretary of Health to issue standing orders. And Mary Long, who's also in Spokane, is on our leadership team, and she testified against that bill. She watches all of the Department of Health meetings and things like that. Informed Choice Washington also testified against that, but it really gave great authority to the Secretary of Health. And what was interesting when I went back and watched the testimonies on that bill, the people that were testifying in support of it were talking about something that it really doesn't do, saying that it, allowed EMTs to give out Narcan and things like that. And that really wasn't what it was. It's really just the authority for the Secretary of Health to issue these standing orders. And so here it says it removes the need for parental consent, local approval, or public debate. Now, the reason for that is because the standing order doesn't have a clause in it that says these COVID vaccines can be administered to minor children with parental consent, right? It doesn't, the order doesn't have that in it. So if that's not in it, or, vaccines for minors are prohibited without parental consent, that leaves it wide open. And, that goes back to what we were just talking about with kids going to the doctor's office and the mature minor stuff. And so this really lays the groundwork for the Secretary of Health to make these directives in a time of non-emergency. And they have complete discretion on this. And so the standing order that they put out last week, right after the West Coast Health Alliance was formed, is so that anybody can get the COVID vaccine without a prescription. Any doctor can provide it. So you could go to, let's say, a Walgreens and ask for a COVID vaccine. And what the CDC is currently saying is that you need to have a prescription and you need to be in the high risk category to get a COVID vaccine. And Washington wants anybody to be able to get it without a prescription. So that's really,
go ahead. Sorry.
So that's really what this standing order does. Let's say your kid walks to Walgreens on the corner and goes to the pharmacy. Like, I don't imagine kids doing this, but what we saw during COVID, you just want to be thinking about all of these things, right? So that was passed in 2024. Also in 2024, the State Board of Education changed.
State Board of Education?
Yeah. Were you on it still in 2024? Or were you gone?
No,
okay.
I was gone.
You were gone. So they changed some of the parameters for private schools. So if they were state certified private schools, they would have to abide by whatever the health directives were for for public schools, right? So that included private schools into that mix, or they would be at risk for losing their certification status. And, we included that there because we just wanted people to know that, hey, the state has brought your private schools into all the rules that public schools have to follow. And now your private school does too. And people kind of freaked out and thought that meant that private schools were giving their kids vaccines without parental consent. And I mean, it could be happening, but I don't think, like, your private school kids aren't getting, vaccinated right now with COVID at their schools. So,
And there's not the clinics, in a
right.
lot of public schools, there are now these clinics
Yes,
on campus, and it kind of lays the groundwork for, makes it easier to have that accessibility, for vaccinations to happen without parental knowledge or consent. And
exactly.
so, right. And actually, when I was on the State Board of Education back in, I don't remember when that was, if it was 2020, I think it was before, it was 2022 or 2021. It might have been before I ran for office. We did fight some of those laws. In fact, Pete Serrano, who is, with Silent Majority Foundation, and
Mhm.
now I believe he was just appointed as the Eastern Washington Supreme Court judge. I don't know if that got done or not, but
I
he's
think he still needs to be confirmed. There's like a battle with
okay.
Patty Murray doesn't want to let him be confirmed.
Yeah, he helped me along with a local attorney to help. They were trying to do that then. Bob Ferguson, Attorney General's office, was trying to do that then. And we were able to fight back because we didn't think that was the original intent of the private school laws from the legislature. But it sounds like they went along with the pressure. I was not aware with that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I
And so
figured
that's
that was coming.
yeah. And so that's just something parents need to know. If you've got your kid in private school that's state certified, and not all private schools are state certified, which I think if
Right.
you can find a private school that's not state certified, that's probably a good thing.
At this point, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some very small percentage of situations where that has been a bad thing.
Yeah.
There has been some bad things that have happened without certification, but again, what has been deemed as a good thing,
Right.
and now you're in line, now is ushering in these policies that are not good for kids. So let's
Yeah.
get back to this standing order.
Yeah. So you've got the standing order, and that was legislated in 2024. And then this year in 2025, we had House Bill 1531, which I know you're well aware of, and you've probably done podcasts about 1531, because that gave the state broad authority to make health directives and mandates. Um,
Can you see that, or is that kind of weird?
um, I can see that. Yes.
Okay. All right. My screen is not showing up very good. So, all right, let's see. Okay. So, let me scroll down. Sorry.
It's okay. So 1531 really just gives broad authority to the state government over local jurisdictions. So
Yeah,
over your local school board, your local, your county health department. The state it's really top down stuff, which is what we've been seeing. This is a theme of Washington, right? We've been seeing this, the state executive branch just trying to rein in more and more power, which was also with Senate Bill 6095
right.
from 2024. So we knew when they passed this, we knew where they were headed. We knew what the motivation here was. And this is just all part of the framework that they're establishing post COVID 1.0, so that they have all of these things in place for whenever COVID 2.0 happens, whether that's next month, next year, 5 years, we don't know. And then last week we saw them form the West Coast Health Alliance on Wednesday, in defiance of the Trump administration. They don't like the stuff that's coming out of the CDC. They don't like people being able to make their own decisions about their healthcare and medical decisions, and for their children. They don't. The CDC wanted this just for high risk groups, and not for anyone and everyone over
Right.
6 months of age. And they didn't like that. And so they said that they need to do this, which we know that they've been planning this little alliance for a long time. And so to roll it out, and then, having the Secretary of Health push out that standing order then on Thursday, and Hawaii joined the alliance on Thursday. Colorado also issued a similar standing order. I did see this morning that in Oregon, they don't have a standing order. And so CVS, was it yesterday? I think CVS said we won't be doing COVID vaccines without a prescription.
Hmm,
And so
interesting.
that is prompting the governor of Oregon to consider some kind of a standing order that will allow providers to give vaccines without a prescription.
Right. So again, this is the reason, part of the reason why this is happening is because the Trump administration with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and then the CDC, right? He's been restructuring that and firing
Mhm.
people, thank goodness, has come out with this guidance that only people in the high risk category above 65 or older should receive, should consider getting a COVID vaccine. And of course, there's a ton of information coming out right now. There's a huge hearing yesterday about vaccines, period, and the studies that have been done or not done, truly. And so it's really in the news right now about um, the efficacy of these vaccines and these mandates that have happened in the past, and this COVID vaccine as well. As if you haven't, maybe you haven't been tuning in or you've only been listening to mainstream media, there is a lot of harm that has come from these COVID vaccines. And so, anyway, that is the dichotomy that we have, right, in these blue Western states, is that they are pushing back against the Trump administration guidance. And I think that's why this standing order came, correct?
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
let's say there was some kind of rise in COVID cases, which is obviously going to happen because it's my opinion. I'm no doctor, but it's my opinion that we've just rebranded the flu as COVID. And those COVID tests pick up, if you've got any kind of a strain of the flu, it will test positive for COVID. And so once flu season hits, whenever that is, was that like December or something, you're going to get more cases, right? And so then will these blue states, when they start, if you test for it, you're going to have it, right? And so it just makes me curious what's going to happen when they start, you know, forcing like to go to school, you're going to have to take a test, and then that gives them the data that they want to, put out some kind of mandates or something like that. So that's kind of in my prediction. And I'm not very often, my intuition is crazy accurate on a lot of these things. But I kind of think that's the way that the the left is going to go. These blue states are going to go,
Yeah.
is there's going to be a rise during flu season, and they're going to need to put in precautionary measures. What that would look like at first, I don't really know. And I think, what did you do during COVID? I think that's the thing people need to think about. I've never had a jab. I've never had a COVID jab. I don't do flu shots. I did nothing really that different. I went to the grocery store without a mask in Western Washington. When King County did their vaccine passport thing, I just didn't go to businesses and restaurants in King County. So, that kind of goes with what we were talking about when you take your kid to the doctor's office. It's just have a plan and be prepared for when it does happen. You don't need to get all freaked out about it, but just know that it's likely coming at some point. And what are you going to do? How are you going to respond?
Right. And that's the difference too with this order, with the standing order that the Department of Health in Washington, and then, other of these blue states may as well, like you said, Oregon's not there yet, is that the push to get these is there where it wouldn't have been otherwise, because the
Right.
CDC recommendation was only over 65. Now, as young as 6 months old, with the standing order, you're going to see this push, probably, likely, from your healthcare providers. And it's not a mandate yet, but what you're saying, Julie, and I just want to make sure I'm catching this clearly, is your prediction is there's probably going to be something that happens. And this is laying the groundwork for those mandates to come right back in
Yeah,
Is
I
that
mean,
what
people
you're
are going to get the flu like they always do every winter in Washington and everywhere else for that matter. And I think the COVID tests test positive for just regular flu. And the other thing that's really important is these providers get money, right? For every COVID shot, they get money. So when you take your baby into the pediatrician in Washington State, and they can give them the COVID shot, and let's face it, MJ, a lot of parents are just normies. They're not listening to people like us. They're not watching conservative news. They're picking up whatever they scroll by on Instagram. And so a mom who's juggling a ton of different things with the baby goes into the pediatrician, and the pediatrician recommends it.
Yep.
And you trust your doctor.
Yep.
And to me, that's kind of the worst thing about this, because we have these little babies and children who can't speak for themselves, and their parents are not educated about the harms of these vaccines. And I believe we're going to have a huge portion of the population that's infertile as a result of this. I think we're going to
We already
have,
do. Yeah.
yeah, we're going to see more heart problems I can't tell you how many, like, I'll be on Facebook. I can't tell you how many Facebook friends that are in my age group. I'm 50, right? And their husbands are dropping dead.
Yeah.
Like,
Terrific. Well,
truly died suddenly. I'm like, holy cow. It's
yeah.
frightening.
Yeah, we've known people that have died suddenly that, same thing. I'm a little older than you. I'm 53. I just turned 53. So I've got a few more gray hairs there, Julie. But yeah, I was an unsuspecting parent. I used to be there.
Me
And
too.
I had one mom. So my kids are 28 and 30, so a little older. But back in the
Well, my
day,
oldest is 29.
okay, so we are right there. That's
Mhm.
right. Back in the day, when they were little, and they were 18 months apart, we were going to kinder music, and I had a mom that said to me, "Are you going to vaccinate your boys?" And they were. I mean, this was before Preston was 18 months, because this was before the MMR, before he had the MMR. And I said, I don't know why. And they said, well, there's a link to boys and vaccinations and autism. You probably should look into it. And so I did. I researched, I looked into it, I saw it, I talked to my doctor about it.
Mm,
And your doctors are human beings too. I don't necessarily think they are nefarious, but
right.
they are in a system that binds their decisions or incentivizes vaccination. Like I know a lot of pediatricians, it's based on the percentage of their children, their caseload that has a fully vaccinated, they get perks, money perks. I don't know if that's still happening. It was happening during COVID.
Yeah.
And so I was an unsuspecting parent. And I asked my doctor, and he said, well, then everybody would have autism. And I asked, and I had concerns, but I trusted. I trusted what they said, and I went ahead. And Preston, my youngest, stopped talking for 2 years. And
Oh
I,
my
I
goodness.
didn't put two and two together. But the MMR, he got a rash, he got a ear infection, he ended up with croup. He ended up in the peds the ICU with severe croup. There was a bunch of things that happened that was kind of like, and I didn't connect all the dots until we moved to Spokane Valley. They had an autism program, and they said, we think your son has autism. And he had at that time he had a little bit of speech, but it was very, very delayed. So he was put in special ed preschool. But until then, I started to really do the research, and that's when I found, and it was only through Yahoo groups at the time, because there was no social media.
Right.
And what early like late 19
Yeah, I was in AOL groups.
Oh yes, yeah. Yahoo groups was where I found people the same stuff happening, but we got poo-pooed by our doctors
Yeah.
and everything. But I read a book, and I gave this story to the Children's Health Defense Fund. They interviewed me a few months ago, and I still have the book, and it showed the trend in autism in the States compared to the trend in autism in the UK, what happened, they started their vaccine schedule exactly 10 years behind ours. And their uptrend in autism mirrored ours exactly 10 years
Wow.
after. And they slowed down, they pulled back, and we didn't.
Yeah.
And I cried for 2 weeks. I cried for 2 weeks. And so we say this, I mean, that happened to me. You had
Yeah.
things happen to you, and your child, and these things are happening. And so we're sounding the alarm and coming to you out of the care of our heart,
Right.
because I know life is busy and people are busy working. And,
When you get passionate about it, when something like this happens to your child, it's so heartbreaking as a mom, and you just want to do everything you can to spare other people from having to go through that same heartbreak.
yes, absolutely. And so for 23 years now, I haven't been able to trust the government. And
Yeah,
like you
for sure.
said, I was pretty quiet about it until COVID.
Yeah.
And I was almost a lone conservative on the State Board of Education. Good people. I love them. I do. I love every single one of them. But they thought I was crazy when I didn't take the vaccination. And I kind of got ushered, out a bit. I was right in line to be the chair. And so, it's easy to kind of not be aware of this, but please do some research.
Yeah.
I don't get paid for anything I'm doing or saying,
Yeah.
Julie. I don't know you. So, it's out of the care of our hearts because
Yep.
it's happened to us that
Yep.
we sound this alarm, and I don't trust the government, not one bit. And I
No.
don't trust the mainstream medical community either.
No.
The same thing that's happening with Emily, the story from yesterday, is happening with my dad right now. He's going through cancer, prostate cancer. He's 85. And what's the word I want to say? So if you don't follow their plan strictly, they get really irritated with you. And that's what happened with Emily yesterday. She was
Like
trying,
what the doctor wanted you to follow his protocols and what he was recommending.
yeah, to the T, like all of
Yeah.
the things. And like what she was sharing is, they wanted her to do all these things. She did the steroid injection and that helped, and it was helping. And yet they wanted to do 3 more things, and that was a struggle. And, the one doctor kicked her out. She said, broke up with her and sent them to a doctor in Bellevue. And that was going okay until she was struggling with this adherence to this treatment plan, which included multiple other injections and drugs. And that's, they decided not to continue with that. And that's when they got turned into CPS. And that's
Wow.
kind of what my dad is experiencing, is because he's doing ivermectin and fenbendazole and it's working. He's
Oh,
cut his
that's great.
PSA in half in 3 months. He went from a
Wow.
10.1 to a 5.3 in 3 months, and normal range for 65 years and older is 4. So he's almost in the normal range.
Yeah.
And his oncologist wants to proceed, and you need to get radiation, and you need to take this drug, and I need to give you this hormonal injection. And I said, Dad, why? You're improving. It's working. And yes,
Yeah.
he's taking a drug that they prescribed as well, finasteride. He has side effects. He's losing his vision, and he is depressed. And those are side effects from this finasteride. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm saying it right. And they just want to proceed.
Are you close enough to Idaho that you can see some of the freedom doctors over there in North Idaho?
I'm 30 minutes away, so maybe I need to.
Yeah, I would look into that.
Yeah, he's 6 hours away from me, so
Oh, okay.
so it's mostly through phone that we talk. But
Okay.
he's frustrated because he's like, "Yeah, I know." He goes, "I don't understand why I need to." My dad's going to make his own decisions. He's an old farmer dude,
Right, right.
He's very independent. But we talk, and it's like, well, why are they proceeding with wanting to do radiation when you're almost in the normal range for your PSA? So these are the challenges of the medical system that are present, and
Yeah.
it's almost like they're becoming tougher to deal with right now.
Yeah. Because I think because there's so much money tied up in these treatments, right? And so the doing what's best for the patient has like, just gone completely out the window.
That's what my dad and I were talking this morning, is it's like he should be excited you're better. I mean, some
Right.
of the
Right.
indication, he's got physical indications that he's doing better, and then he's got this PSA, which is a huge indicator. Everybody uses it.
And
And
without having to do a treatment like radiation,
that's
you
got
know?
huge risks.
Yeah.
So that's what's really interesting, is you're almost this it's almost this obstinance in our medical professionals to do anything else but adhere to their schedule. And then when you have guidance like this, I'm sorry, this isn't guidance, this is a standing order,
Right.
how are parents going to navigate this? So
Right.
Julie, what if you were talking to a parent right now, maybe not me, maybe somebody that was, not as up on this, because we're not even going there. We're not even going to go, see
Right.
the doctor unless there's some, huge reason to go, medical and true medical emergency. What would you say that they need to do to prepare themselves and to be ready to navigate this, being in the state of Washington?
I think you need to know, like, depending on how old how close to, being a mature minor by whatever doctor's standards your child is. And that could be, 8 years old. And I understand the vaccine that you're explaining to me and I want to have it. You need to be having these conversations with your child. You can probably search up online, like, what are the questions that pediatricians ask when they pull the child into the room without the parent. That you'll probably find a ton of really good information doing that. That'll give you an idea of what they're going to ask, and then you need to talk to your child about that. I think you could probably have your child sign a release of information with your insurance company and with your doctor that will allow you to access their records. Even just over a year ago, but before my daughter turned 18, she was in intensive care in Indiana, and our insurance company was out of Washington. The insurance company wouldn't give me any information and help me with, we needed to find referrals for when she came out of intensive care. And they wouldn't, they wouldn't talk to me without having a release of information from her. And she was in intensive care. She couldn't sign a release of information. Washington is so ridiculous with their laws. But I think that you could call your insurance company and say, my child would like to sign a release of information so that I can advocate on their behalf with you. And so I can, coordinate care and that sort of thing. So you can do that I would have them sign a release of information with every doctor, dentist, therapist, whatever, and with your insurance company, your medical insurance company.
So wait, your daughter was a minor at the time, and they would not release her medical information when
Yeah,
she
and
was.
I wasn't even trying to get medical information. I was trying to get referrals so that I could tell, because your insurance company, you say, here's what's going on. We need referrals for such and such kind of care that are in network in this area of the country. And they're supposed to help you with that. They wouldn't even help me with that without having a release of information.
Is that on the books in our state, Julie? Is that?
I think it's part of the whole 13-year-old thing. And this is like, a big one. This is, Blue Shield, which, they do all the big, like, Microsoft, Boeing. A lot of families are under the Primera Blue Shield policies. So that's something that a parent should do before your child turns 13 or after your child turns 13. If you have teenagers now, it's not too late. Go ahead and do these release of information, and talk to your child about when you come up with the list of questions that the doctor might be asking talk to your child about that so that you're, practice sort of role play with your child. How would you answer this question? Because your child's going to be caught in an awkward and uncomfortable position too. I don't think, at least based on what I've learned from my kids and when I was, a teenager myself, it's really awkward when an adult who is not your parent starts asking you about sex stuff and drugs and depression and all these like weird things that no kid really wants to talk to an adult about. So it's good if you can have your child sort of prepared for those questions that are going to come, so they don't, say something awkward that's maybe even not true, because that's how these kids get kind of stuck into these situations. They might say something that doesn't sound quite right, and that leads the provider into another direction with their questioning. So that's what I would do as far as preparing as a parent with these kids. It's hard to say with as far as what public schools are going to do, if a mandate should come down or something like that. I know after COVID, they were in our school district, they were doing testing. If you want to go back to school in person, you'd have to test, once a week or something like that. I encourage everybody that can get your kids out of the public school system, figure out a way to homeschool, do a pod school or, something like that. Because there's so many, an abundance of reasons not to send your child to public school. So, yeah.
Well, and we had, this is not just recent since COVID. This actually has been going on with parents that have chosen not to vaccinate their children when there's been these measles outbreaks. And there's some really great information from Carl Kanthak. If you haven't seen his research, he's done a really good job kind of digging in and exposing the fallacy of some of these quote outbreaks. But anyway, they locally led to schools making kids go home that didn't have the vaccines, the full vaccinations. And we had a student that committed suicide because he got behind and he felt like he couldn't catch up. We believe that led to, and it was horrific. He was a great kid, and he was a colleague, a classmate of one of my sons, and there was other things, but things like that can happen. You need to be aware of, the impacts, right? If you choose not to vaccinate, or if you've taken the exemption. And that's the other situation too that my friend talked about. That's the reason why they were talking to her doctor, was because she was taking a religious exemption. And now they have to have a doctor sign off on that. When my kids once we learned about the connection with autism and the vaccines, we took the exemption. We did not vaccinate anymore. We just signed that form. We didn't have to have a medical professional sign off on that. Now it sounds like you do, even for a religious exemption. So a medical professional has to approve it. And guess what? Their doctor didn't. She wouldn't sign off on that. She signed off philosophical.
Wow. See, and they just have no right. They have no right to tell you what you can put in your body. And, totally off topic, but it's the same people that, want to be able to murder unborn babies and
Well, and there's more and more research being done that there's aborted feces, fetal material in this, in the COVID vaccines, also in other vaccinations, that is impacting our immune system. That is, causing your body to reject all this stuff. And that's a huge thing with religion, with people's faith.
Right.
That
Exactly.
was something that was very big for me with the COVID vaccination. So I wanted to share this post. I thought this was a really helpful post that you made as well, Julie, because again, unfortunately, let's see, which one is it? Let's see. I think it's this one. A lot of people aren't aware of this. So kind of walk through this a little bit. And it should be that we should be aware in Washington State that this is what's on the books. But again, walk people through and help them understand this.
Yeah. So a minor child can get an abortion without parental consent or notification. That is thanks to a couple of different policies work together. In 2023, they passed House Bill 1469, which is a shield law, which makes abortion and so-called gender affirming care protected healthcare in Washington state. And then that works with Senate Bill 5599, which allows a child to seek abortion services without parental notification. And then they can go, they can get services, they can get housing, and all of that. The same one below it with I call it gender denying care, is the same law applies to both of those. In 2022, Washington passed ESSB 5883. This allows a minor child to claim that they are homeless, and then they can consent for their own care. In that 2023 session or 2022 session, Republicans offered so many different amendments to try to fix the bill so that providers would have to verify that the child was in fact homeless. And the Democrats voted every single one of those down. So that was not added to the final bill. So they don't need any proof. So, I mean, think about and this has happened to me, so I'm not just making things up, but think of kind of an activist social worker working with your child. Well, you can get this because, you're homeless, right? And, I mean, they will lead your child in the direction that they want them to go. And a lot of people will say, well, I have a really good relationship with my child. I did too, but we have to remember that, most of us have taught our children to, respect adults and respect authority. And so people who present themselves as an authority, whether they're a medical provider or some kind of therapist or a teacher or whatever, our children tend to comply, right? So these are conversations that you want to have with your kids. And then a provider can allow a minor child to consent if they deem the child is mature enough under the mature minor doctrine. And that's kind of what we were talking about at the beginning. The provider just has to, ask a child question. You want to get a COVID vaccine, right? You don't want to get sick and have COVID and it protects you and blah, blah, blah. And so the child's like, okay. And then my last sentence, I was being sarcastic because so many people have been just telling me, no, they can't do that in Washington. They absolutely can. And parents really need to wake up, understand that they can and they will. And so have these conversations, protect your child, and let your children know that they can and they will do these things. And why give your child the tools so that they can engage in those conversations and say no.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very important to know. And I think it helps, to break it down into those pinpoint, posts like that and sound bites or graphics to help bring it home. And I guess we just got to keep saying it and repeating it because it is happening, and it's happening right here in our state. It's happening with my friends, with your friends. People need to be aware of their rights and then also watch what's happening. Julie, one of the things that I'm curious about is how this standing order happened without, as far as I know, any public hearing. And I've started to hear this a little more often lately. I had Representative Suzanne Schmidt on here a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about some of the impact coming down because the legislature passed it, and it, I can't remember if it was a tax or exactly what it was. There's been so many things in our state, but they basically said, we don't have time for a public hearing, so we're just going to do our best and make judgment calls. And is this a situation where there was not a public hearing?
And there doesn't need to be, because that's exactly what Senate Bill 6095 gives the Secretary of Health that authority to issue these standing orders without a board meeting, without public input.
Without basically due process of the public
Right.
knowing, transparency, and awareness.
That's where you have, and I think it was in Mary's testimony, and I shared that in a video. You have an official who's not elected, but appointed by the governor.
Mhm.
And that's one of the biggest concerns about these types of positions is the people haven't had anything to say about that person's position of authority.
Right.
And then they're given the power to make directives that impact the people of the state.
Yeah, at least during COVID, the Department of Health, if you remember, I definitely remember because there was a TAC committee that was formed,
Mhm.
and we had a person from the State Board of Education on there. That part of the process, of deciding whether or not this COVID vaccine was going to be put on the regular schedule of required vaccines or not for school age children. It went through a process, and it
Yep.
had open meetings, and it had this advisory committee that also had open meetings. And if I remember right, I believe they ended up not
Right.
uh, mandating it, but it was close. I believe that.
There was so much public outcry about that, and there were so many people attending those meetings and making public comments that I think they realized that it probably was not politically advantageous for them to adopt the COVID vaccine to the school schedule.
Yeah. So unfortunately, and you said it was 6095, or was it 1531? It was 6095.
6095 gave the Secretary of Health the power to issue these standing orders. And then 1531 gives the state the authority to pass down medical mandates, directives, whatever, to all your local.
Right. And was 6095 was in 24. No.
Yes.
Okay, 6094 was last year. Did that get a lot of pushback from?
Not as much as it should have. There were, I think, 3 or 4 people that testified in opposition to it. Our organization was one of them. Informed Choice Washington was one of them, and then a couple of mothers testified against it.
And then how about our Republican representatives?
You had Kretz in the House. He's gone now, but he voted for it. And who on the Rivers on the Senate side, I believe, voted for it, and she's also gone.
Interesting. So just a couple of Republican representatives or senators did. Okay,
Yep.
so the majority, the large
Majority did not. But here's the problem: when even just one of them crosses the line, it allows Bob Ferguson to go up in those press conferences like he did with the Keep Washington Working Act, the sanctuary state bill, and say, this was bipartisan legislation. Technically, that's correct. As long as you have one person that crosses the line, it makes it bipartisan.
Wow.
And then it makes it very difficult for the Republicans to argue against it.
Well, and it's a soundbite, and the media
Yep.
runs with it, and it's kind of becomes a snowball.
Yep.
You said, wow. So these are the reasons why we need to stay aware. We need to partner with organizations like Conservative Ladies of Washington, Conservative Ladies of America. I did want to ask you, what is it like living in Florida and seeing this dichotomy of, number one, governors? Hello,
Yeah.
Ferguson versus DeSantis, and the things that DeSantis is championing versus what Ferguson is championing. I mean, what's that been like, Julie? You've been
It
there
is night
2
and day.
years.
It's like separate. It's like 2 separate countries, and it's wonderful. Like every day, it seems like there's something really good happening for conservatives in Florida. Like Monday, there was a press conference to announce our 2A tax holiday. So there's no taxes on like firearms, ammunition, holsters, hunting gear, hunting supply, all of that stuff until the end of the year, September 8th to the end of the year. And it's just like these little things that you're like, yes, this is America. But DeSantis just created a Florida MAHA commission that will be chaired by the First Lady and our Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins. And there are no vaccine mandates statewide. They can't. No one is allowed to have a mandate. And it's funny because Ferguson went on CNN. I don't know if you've seen that clip, inviting Florida parents who were afraid of Governor DeSantis's new option, that they're not taking your option away. They're just saying you have the option, you have the choice if you want to get vaccinated or your kids get vaccinated or not. So he's inviting the Florida liberals to come up to Washington. So, I mean, if we're going to do that, I propose a house swap for Washington conservatives who need to get out. I could kind of broker that deal. I could put in some sort of vetting to make sure that you're a real conservative and that you're going to vote conservative.
I like it. I like the way you're thinking. You're always an entrepreneur. I love it.
So, yeah, it's really good. We do have, we're not perfect and without problems. We have a huge rhino problem here. And in 2026, we will have a new governor's race. DeSantis is termed out here in Florida. A governor can only serve 2 terms. So he is termed out. And we know Byron Donalds is running and he feels like he has the golden ticket because he's got the Trump endorsement. Byron Donalds is not conservative. He has a very bad history that's very, very leftist. And he really doesn't do that much besides talk on Fox News, which I remember when I was in Washington and I'd see him, I'd be like, oh, he seems really good. He seems really conservative. But when you're here and living here, you realize he doesn't actually do anything for the people. So my money is on Jay Collins, Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins. He is a retired Green Beret. He calls himself a God-fearing, gun-toting, bacon-loving, one-legged retired Green Beret. And he just got appointed to Lieutenant Governor a month ago. And it looks like he's being set up to run for governor, which would be amazing. That would be wonderful for Florida. That would be carrying on the DeSantis agenda. We also have our AG, James Uthmeyer, who was just appointed a few months ago. He is a bulldog. I'd say he's the best AG in the country. So it's good, but you've got to be in the fight. So if you are someone in Washington who's planning to head out for a red state, please don't just go and kick your heels up. You've got to get in the fight because there are rhinos everywhere. There's swampy corruption everywhere. And so if we want it to be America that that our forefathers, the founding fathers wanted for us, we need to get in and be in the fight and do our civic duty.
Yes. And there are so many ways you can do that. You know, Julie makes it easy for people in Washington state to engage through, her platform, through the website, through the social media. You send out a weekly during session, you send out a weekly a top 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
You still do that here and click the button to testify. And, you promote, hey, you've done your research and you promote which way you guys are standing as an organization on the bill.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes it very easy. And I think you've actually helped launch a lot of, you were kind of the trailblazer of that. And we've got like Family Policy Institute of Washington that does a lot of that now. We have our local Spokane County GOP has kind of a more localized, they work in partnership with you, but they put out things that, where we might have some other bills that we're watching that's not on your radar, that's more local interest or something. And so that's an easy way to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important. And even though sometimes it's frustrating in our state because we feel like, okay, they just went ahead and passed it anyway. It makes a difference when you see 10,000 people that signed in against it and only 300 that signed in for it. And yet, that shows something. And it shows that people are paying attention and that, the representatives are not representing.
Right.
And that's very, very important. And so we've got to stay in the fight, like you said, and then also being involved locally, getting on school boards, getting on state boards of education, getting on these Department of Health boards, getting on, your water board, your local, like all politics are local. And so there's so much that needs to be done. We sat on our arses for too long, and that's why we got to where we are. So, get involved. Like Julie says, you got to get involved.
And even in a state like Washington, I would say really start building community and, get to know your neighbors, or start growing food, and, think about what might be coming in the future. Book recommendation for people in Washington will appreciate this more than anywhere else, but 299 Days. It's a series. My husband listened to it on audiobook. I like paper, so I bought all the books on paperback. They're really short books and they're really easy to read. It's written by a Washington author who was an Olympia insider. And from what I understand, the main character is based on Glenn Morgan. And so what the series is about is a collapse of Washington government and what happens after the collapse, and like how all these neighborhoods, these communities, kind of came together and what they did. And it's really interesting. It's what like really turned my husband into a prepper. But it's good. And my husband and I enjoyed like talking to each other about it and listening to it in the car together. But that's a great book. But those are the kinds of things to be thinking of. Like if there was a big, natural disaster here or another COVID thing, what would that look like? And how would my family survive and thrive without, the government, because you want to be able to live without as much government as possible. And we do that here in Florida. We are kind of always thinking in that direction of making sure that we're self-sufficient. So it's just kind of a good thing for us to do, but we've gotten so comfortable with our modern day living.
Isolated. I think COVID, really impacted that as well. And I don't think that's a healthy thing for us to be in these silos and disconnected. I think it is not the way we were designed to be. We were designed to be actually kind of not independent, but interdependent, somewhat dependent on each other. So I love that. I love neighborhood. I love community. That's one of the things about being a PCO is that, you are the representative of your neighborhood to your local party, whether it's Democrat or Republican. But I'm a Republican. I'm going to promote those conservative values. And yes, Republicanism is not perfect and there's a lot of corruption. Let me just say that. And so we've got to get in there and fix it. It is not perfect as it is. As Julie has brought up, we've got people that are not voting the way they should be voting if they're true conservatives. And so that's on us. So get involved and then get to know your neighbors, and that was part of Emily's story too, right? As like egg prices increased during COVID or the last couple years, they were trying to prohibit how many eggs you could get for your family. And that now she has 200 chickens. Now, maybe you don't need 200 chickens, but you've got to think about these things, going and buying bread. I've kind of gotten into the sourdough kick. It gave me a distraction this year, not being chair of the party. It was a good project for me to have. And I love it. It's 3 ingredients. I know exactly what is in that bread. And I make sure the flour does not have Roundup in it as well. And so I think, I'm giving my family that wholesome food versus counting. I know, and some people don't have time. I get that. But if you can do one little thing. And so now I'm trading with eggs with another friend for some bread. I don't have chickens, but that's that community.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
And then you have also one of the things that I've thought, Julie, is for a long time since my kids were in elementary school, where are our retired elderly people that could be helping our youngins grow up better, right? They've been disconnected from the society as well, and they have so much to offer us. They have treatments, remedies, natural remedies, great recipes.
Right? Absolutely. So much wisdom and, practical just ways of living that they can hand down to these younger generations that, we don't want to lose that.
Right. So community, I love that. I love that you brought that up. Any final thoughts that you have for everybody? What are you kind of looking at moving forward? We've got a few months before the next legislation session starts. What are you thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, in Washington, you're really just playing whack-a-mole, trying to frustrate the process and slow things down a little bit. So that's difficult. We've kind of been shunned by the Republicans in Washington State. So they're not really friendly to us. And
What
it's,
is that about, Julie? What's going on
yeah.
there?
I don't know. I don't know, but it's unfortunate because when I first got into this, I thought we were going to be helping the Republicans, because I can't, I was talking to Brad and Brad wanted our help, and so I thought, oh, they're all going to want our help, and they, unfortunately, a lot of these legislators have either their own agenda or they're pushing somebody else's agenda, whether it's a donor or a lobbyist or whatever. And unfortunately, the citizen voice doesn't carry a lot of weight with these people, because even if they don't do what the citizens are asking, it doesn't seem to impact them in a negative way. They get reelected, and so and people have that, don't say bad things about Republicans. Well, telling the truth isn't saying a bad. I mean, if they think that's bad, then maybe they should stop doing what they're doing. But and they have so many different bills that they're looking at that they can't possibly know everything about every policy, right? And so that's why we're trying to, with our little area of focus, we're trying to educate them on it. And it's just kind of been disappointing that people don't, many of them just don't want our voice involved. So we'll see. We're definitely going to take a different strategy in 2026, just because it's like, we want the public to know, we want the citizens to know, but how much energy do we keep giving to, both, when both parties don't really want us there at all. So we'll see. And I don't know if you knew this, I'm a full-time government and public policy student at Liberty University.
I did not know that. Is that
and I'm getting a 4.0. I'm a senior.
Is that Chris
So
Ann Hall?
Next time you hear somebody say that I don't know how to read bills, you can let them know that.
Okay, I will. Is that Chris Ann Hall?
What?
Is it
at Liberty?
Is she connected with that?
I don't know.
Okay, she's a former Florida Attorney General, I think, and she is a great constitutionalist. And I heard her speak here locally back in 2022. She had an event here. And so I know she has kind of like an online university, but I don't know. So Liberty is actually, I'm thinking it's something else. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not the same. Liberty University is a college in Virginia.
Okay.
And so I do their online college, and I never finished my degree. I got pregnant with my first child back in 95 and never finished school. And it's funny because I was a poli-sci major back then because I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to do family law. So all of my poli-sci, intro classes that I'd taken during my first 2 years set me up good for, I'm basically a specialty major within political science. So, but it's fun because, I'm doing all these classes now in my major, and it's like the stuff I do every day. Right. So I can bring a lot of, when I have to write papers and stuff, I can write about some of the issues that I see on a daily basis. So, so that takes a lot of time. And, I know our whole team in Washington got really frustrated with last session, but we want to do something so that we are empowering citizens and really, that political watchdog term, that's really important to me on a national level too. So, and I'll be doing that in Florida, and I push back here in Florida against the rhinos. So.
Yeah. Well, and parental rights watchdog. I totally, before we got on, I totally thought of that term for you, especially with these policies that are being passed. And I really appreciate it. And I hope you don't give up. I don't care. Usually you get flack when you're over the target.
Yep.
So, and even Republicans have gotten, I know they're frustrated, but they also can have a, good old boys club, if you will,
Mhm.
and go along to get along.
Right.
We know that. We know personal stories of
Right.
that. We both you've shared personal stories of that with me. And so we have to keep on the watch, and we have to advocate for the truth at all, corners, at all forks in the road. And
Yep.
that's what I appreciate about you, is you don't back down off of that. And thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for doing that. How can people get involved, Julie, with your organization if they want to learn more, they want to do more? Maybe they like to be on your team.
Yeah, the bet like if they want to like really get involved, the best way is to reach out to me directly. Find me on X at Julie C. Barrett, or send me an email, Julie at conservativeladiesofamerica.com. Our website, conservativeladiesofamerica.com. There's a contact page there as well. But yeah, we have, and we're not just ladies. Some of our hardest workers are actually the men, and that's been really fun and surprising to see, because a lot of times, the women, they like the wine and cheese parties that we had, in the beginning when it was still COVID, and then we got into our mission, and it was kind of hard to transition them into the into the work zone. But the guys, they love it. And they're very good at it. And so if you're a guy watching and you want to get involved, we'd love to have you. We do 2A, 1A, parental rights, education, and the right to life. We believe in protecting from womb to grave. So,
Yeah. And you have a political scorecard still,
mhm.
correct? Do you
Yep,
get a scorecard for the legislators
yep,
in Washington? So you
yep,
can check on the website for that. That's really good. And like you focus on those themes. Those are kind of
yep.
where you
We
keep your
pick 10
focus.
bills within our scope of focus to score the legislators on, and we intentionally pick ones that uh, maybe were difficult to message to the legislators on, but have a big impact on the citizens.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. That's awesome. And then are you planning, also did weekly Zoom meetings? I think that were helpful for people to understand what was going on. Are you thinking you're going to continue that?
we put a pause on those simply because we were getting kind of the same half dozen people that would show up every week, which was awesome. But the whole idea with these Zoom meetings was to get citizens engaged and kind of help figure out how can you plug in with the time and the skills that you have. And it's just really difficult to get people to engage. So we're trying to sort of figure out what the best use of our time and how we can get people involved. So we've got a few ideas kicking around. We'll see what sticks.
Okay, awesome. Well, again, thank you for sounding the horn on this, on these policies, on the recent developments of this. I'm still kind of trying to understand how this alliance is going to impact us, what it means. And so I think, we'll kind of stay tuned on that. And just anytime that you want to come back on here, I love having you, Julie.
Oh, thanks.
And I appreciate it. And again, if there's people that have stories, real life stories that want to share, so other people can be aware of these policies that have impacted them, unfortunately, probably in a negative way, I'm happy to do that. And,
Awesome.
just however we can partner.
Well, I
So,
appreciate you using your platform to bring truth. And thanks so much for inviting me back. It's always fun to hang out and chat with you.
yes, I feel the same way. Well, blessings to you and your family in
Same to
Florida.
you.
I get jealous a lot of times when I see those policies. I haven't been too jealous because I know it was very humid there the last few months, but I'm
And you saw
sure.
the first lady of Florida retweeted me.
Yes, she retweeted your post about it, and I put that in the promo. I forgot to bring that up. Yeah, Casey just
I was
posted,
so giddy with excitement.
which was about this policy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's pretty neat. See, you're making an impact, no doubt.
Well, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Julie. Blessings to you, and take care. And we'll be watching for you. Follow Julie Barrett on X and go to her website and check out her information and sign up for the emails so you can stay informed and know your rights as a parent. All right. Blessings,
Thanks,
everybody.
MJ.
Take care.